This was the end of Kanye as a standard bearer for hip hop. His sound that was once revolutionary had now been mimicked so much by countless other acts that it didn't seem so revolutionary. His interest in high fashion and lifestyle had already kind of been taken up by the dominant society and so many other rappers. Kanye, for all his genius and forward thinking, had allowed the culture to catch up to him. Kanye from the beginning has always been a contrarian. And as pop culture has moved further left, it's almost as if he felt like he needed to move more right in order to maintain being a contrarian. And that's possible, but I just don't fucking know. I don't fucking know. So for those who are just joining us, this is the second in a series of videos examining the journey of Kanye West and his original fandom that started back in the early 2000s. In the last video, we look at Kanye's origins and how he represented a huge change in hip hop at the time, how he won the hearts of a generation of fans, especially Black men for whom he became an icon and a paradigm shift in how Black men were viewed in America. For his older fans, like myself, we tend to call this the old Kanye.
One wall, 20 plaques, dudes fake, give me that. I am limelight, blueprint, 5 mics, go get his rhyme like should've been signed twice.
Furthermore, because I'm a dork, I wanted to find a way to better frame the way that Kanye has worked as an icon and loved figure in hip hop that can give greater insight into his relationship to his fans. And for that, I use professional wrestling.
I'm going to shock the world because he is none other than the Shock Master! All right. The Shock Master!
I told you. Oh, God.
All of this can be explained in the first video, which I suggest you watch, but you don't have to watch it first to make sense of this one. Because the sad reality is that the Kanye then and the Kanye now, new Kanye, are so different that they might as well be different people. In this video, I look at the last decade or so of Kanye's career since the death of his mother, where he greatly changed his style of music, but also his place in hip hop culture, and most significantly, his public persona. We tend to refer to this as new Kanye. Got it? Hope you do, because this is a long one and we got to jump right in.
The world. When you hear about slavery for 400 years, that sounds like a choice. In prison, I like the word prison because slavery, Holocaust Jews, slavery is blacks. So prison is something that unites us as one race.
So starting with our wrestling framework, it's really hard to be a good heel in wrestling. And by heel, I mean bad guy. And it's hard because when you're a heel, you have to kind of be an asshole. And people's natural response to being an asshole is to kind of ignore you. But for a heel, you have to be an asshole that people still invest in. You can't just be a bad guy, you have to be a villain. The best heel work moments come from characters that are former baby faces, aka good guys. And this is because for baby faces, we've had to watch you fight in wrestling. For those things to work, for the characters that are good guys to get over, we have to have fought with you at times. We have to have cheered you on. So for baby faces, an audience would have went on a journey with them and formed a uniquely parasocial bond with them on their way to the top. We would have cheered for them literally when they're down and celebrated with them when they've triumphed. Because of the deep bonds a babyface might have with an audience, when a babyface turns into a bad guy and turns heel, it can lead to amazing moments in storytelling. This is because much like in real life, it's those you're closest to that know you the best, that you're emotionally invested in, that really know where to stick the knife. They know where the scars are. They know how to cut you deep. And the capacity for a babyface who knows the audience's heart to get some serious heel heat is immense.
This is my yard now.
To me, this is the best way to describe the last few years of Kanye West and his relationship to his fandom. Someone who wrote in the comments in the last video said, how can the same man who wrote All Falls Down and Heard Him Say have gone so bad? That's what makes Kanye's current hill run so incredible, because it's like he understands exactly what made him beloved in the first place and has weaponized that against us. If you compare this to, say, Barack Obama, whom we loved in a moment but didn't fully understand what he was at the time. And as time went on and as the culture changes, we recontextualize our feelings on exactly that particular moment. But see, with Kanye, this is full on Anakin Skywalker. This is you are the chosen one energy. Because for his fans, he was the one who was supposed to shake up the world and change the rap game. And he did. And then he decided to go bad. And he has taken all the things that we have loved him for and systemically destroyed them, leaving this doppelganger in his place. And it seems intent on tormenting us for ever daring to love him in the first place.
Do you feel that I'm feeling? Do you feel that I'm being free and I'm thinking free?
I actually don't think you're thinking anything. I think what you're doing right now is actually the absence of thought. And the reason why I feel like that is because Kanye, you're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to believe whatever you want. But there is fact and real world, real life consequence behind everything that you just said. And while you are making music and being an artist and living the life that you've earned by being a genius, the rest of us in society have to deal with these threats to our lives. We have to deal with the marginalization that has come from the 400 years of slavery that you said for our people was a choice. Frankly, I'm disappointed, I'm appalled, and brother, I am unbelievably hurt by the fact that you have morphed into something, to me, that's not real.
But why is that? And what has changed about Kanye from where we last left off in our video to now make me feel this way? To understand, we got to pick back up in 2008, right after Kanye's mother passed. Like any good heel, Kanye changed everything about himself almost immediately. Like a good heel that used to be a face might have a certain appealing and bright look, but now they're switching it to something dark. They may used to smile all the time, but now it's all frowns. Maybe they had this awesome high-flying ring style, but now it's more brutal and less crowd-pleasing. Kanye did the same. He abandoned his normal hip-hop aesthetic and started rocking this late 80s black mullet and suits and really turned up the arrogance. But most significantly, he changed up his music style. There were lots of rumors about Kanye's state of mind and him changing and going dark, coming out of his mother's death, but it wasn't really confirmed until after 808s and Heartbreak.
In the night I hear him talk, the story ever told. Somewhere far along this road he lost his soul to a woman so heartless.
808s and Heartbreak is a intense departure from his previous work, but paradoxically, it was a glimpse into the future, no pun intended, of what hip hop would sound like in the next decade. It was dark and broody and emo, but melodic and mellow. Kanye channeled his pain into the music. Hip hop and pain are not strangers, right? Like lots of rappers have evoked the legacy of the blues and soul music while rapping about pain and loss in hip hop. See lesser known rap legend Scarface for that. But Kanye was abandoning the traditionally black sounds like the blues that he mostly stuck with from before and really embracing 80s synth and new wave and techno and the emerging auto-tune aesthetic along with the 808 machine. And this created this gut-wrenching, very minimalist but thumping tracks to go along with his auto-tune assistant vocals.
Flashing Lights, Homecoming, Heard Him Say. These records didn't have any tricks to them. They was just pure. It wasn't like you never heard the sample before. It wasn't anything for you to like it other than you just liked it. And I was like, I want to make a whole album like that just stands on its own. That's like, Love Like Down ain't sampling nothing. Yeah. Heartless ain't sampling nothing, you know. So it's like pure from my soul records, stepping out, no labels, no featured artists, none of the tricks that A&Rs use.
Did you have a Kanye album with no samples, no soul beats? Yeah, Kanye has switched it up before, but now he wasn't even rapping at all. And like, this was just too big of a departure. We wanted Good Ass Job. This was the album that Kanye was supposed to drop. It was supposed to be a 4-part 4-logy that basically mimicked the 4 years of going through college, the college dropout, late registration, graduation, good ass job. But instead we got 808, and most of us early fans, including myself, weren't super crazy about the departure. But history has shown us that it's clear we were on the wrong side here, because 808s has went on to become probably the most influential album in hip hop's last decade, if not more. There's tons of videos that discuss how influential 808s was, but I think this clip kind of explains it all.
I wonder that these two have actually both gone on record, citing this album as being hugely influential to their sound.
Damn, you just had to throw this in here. I need to like my shit, hold on. Passing, this is my shit, bro. This nigga, you know how people talk about those time travelers? Kanye is a time traveler. That nigga went to damn near 2015 and came back with some sauce.
What do you mean with drums? You don't use drums?
Yeah, but it's 808s.
That's it.
Cause they're all 808 and Heartbreak dudes. They all just want boom.
Yeah.
This is why you want to know that there's a huge disconnect between the adults and kids of hip hop.
Yeah.
The album that most adults, not me, but the album that most adults said, this shit sucks. I don't ever want to hear this from Kanye West again. The kids were all like, this is finally the Kanye West I was waiting for. Boom, hip hop divides. Old and young, right there.
Changing my life.
I like both.
808s changed your life.
Yeah, it was
Really?
fire.
See, while early Kanye opened the door for Lupe, Drake, etc., who all came right after him in the early to mid 2000s, 808 was the foundation of basically the last whole decade of hip hop and what it will probably continue to be going forward. You can hear its influence from everyone from Tyler the Creator, Lil Uzi Vert, to G-Eazy, Future. It basically has redefined what hip hop was able to sound like and look like at this point. The irony here is that most of Kanye's biggest fans, myself included, didn't like it. It was too before its time. Up until researching this video, I had barely listened to any of Kanye's records from this era in years, except for Dark Fantasy, which we'll get to in a second. But circling back to them, I realized how much more I like them now because my ear has been trained to hear it differently. When 808s and Yeezus happened, I was really not a fan because I was looking for old Kanye, but the last decade of Future and Migos and Young Thug and Travis Scott, etc. has improved my ability to hear just how far ahead of the curve Kanye was. And I've been blasting these albums for weeks trying to catch up. But it wasn't just the music that was different. Though Kanye had always been brash and outspoken, his public persona went from the cheeky yet visionary pioneer and inspirational voice of the people to broody, somewhat pretentious, and highly self-centered and egotistical. Kanye always wanted to be seen and heard, but he was done talking about the people and he was now focused on himself and fulfilling what he saw as his destiny, which was changing the world. It was around this time that I started to kind of get the hint that Kanye stopped being one of us. He had ironically graduated. He was bigger than the culture that birthed him. He was beginning to show signs that hip hop may not have been big enough to hold his ambitions. This didn't kill his overall support from his original fans, but we were starting to worry.
Go to a completely different arena and say, man, I want to go up against Silverchair. Like, who is that? You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to go up against Red Hot Chili Peppers. I told the label, I said, every radio station that the Killers play on, try to get my record, try to get Love Lockdown on that station. And then at the same token, I'ma be on Hot 97, I'ma be on Power 106. You know, Radiohead, they do songs, you play their songs in stadiums, they play their songs in high-end fashion stores, but they don't play their songs in strip clubs. But I'm gonna be the first artist to have songs that's played in stores that sell straight Dior, Home, and Chris Van Ash and Lanvin, and also straight up in the grimiest strip club. They playing the exact same record to make the widest form of music known of this generation.
With everyone else, on the other hand, Kanye was getting massive heel heat, and he was doing so by purposefully flaunting his transgressive identity. In wrestling, the most notable heel archetype is the arrogant and pompously smug heel. American exceptionalism has always championed individualism, but only within a certain framework of humility. To be flamboyant and draw attention to yourself was to be transgressive, so heels did exactly that. they'd get even more heat if they could add to their arrogance a sense of superiority, and maybe even some queer coding for legends like Gorgeous George, who was a huge draw in the 1940s by playing a prissy, foppish dandy as he incensed crowds with his very existence, which was a slap in the face of their conservative values.
Of course, is the perfume sprayer and the tray. The robe that Gorgeous George is wearing tonight is really one of the most beautiful ones we've seen. Gorgeous George's collection of robes totals over 100 beautiful robes and at a value of over $200,000.
It feels like Kanye did something similar. It wasn't explicitly his gender performance, though that was definitely part of it, but it was his audacity to not conform to normative expectations of black masculinity or masculinity as a whole, let alone how black men are expected to act, and still dare you to disagree, to dislike, and more importantly, to doubt that he was as good as he said he was.
With this, so I created a new genre of music, and iTunes can choose to use it or not, but the genre for this sound is called pop art, and that's what I wanted to say on iTunes, pop art. And the only other thing that I think could go on there currently is Pink Floyd.
There was an underlying element of animosity toward the fact that this black man was so brazenly flouting his status, talent, and belief in himself with no regard to racial or gender hierarchies, and people wanted to bring him down a peg. And to be clear as to how duplicitous this was, to put it in perspective, Charlie Sheen around the same time was having the height of his career run by being this ridiculous, unhinged, and violent caricature where he had gotten into trouble with the law multiple times for abusing women and drinking and driving, and all of this stuff, including his own set of unhinged and crazed interviews, made him a bigger star.
Charlie Sheen spent the better part of Christmas Day in a Colorado jail cell. Here's his mugshot. Authorities say the 44-year-old was arrested on domestic violence allegations.
I ingested or took drugs?
Yes, when was the last time you took drugs?
Such an AA stupid expression or term. I don't remember.
Tell me about the last time you took drugs.
The last time I took drugs, I probably took more than anybody could survive.
What are we talking about? How much?
I don't know, man. I was banging 7-gram rocks and finishing them because that's how I roll. I have one speed, I have one gear. Go.
That's led to this.
Have you had any?
No. Whoa. Before you ask the next question, why don't you get high on this drug? Ding! Pretty cool beans. How about we trade our tiger blood for some winning? Ding!
And all of this generally abhorrent public behavior made him one of the biggest stars of that time in the moment. He went on a speaking tour. Sure, he had his attractors, but his poor behavior through the lens of whiteness made him a hero and a free thinker, and all that other bullshit that Elon Musk or Joe Rogan is on these days. On the flip side, black men have always been expected, if not required, to be on their best behavior in public for fear of being seen as dangerous and criminal. To some extent, I think this was the biggest element of backlash against Kanye that was spurred on by racialized tension toward his behavior and not knowing his place. But this is not to insinuate that Kanye was not without fault. He was definitely healing it up. Kanye played into it so much that his own inner circle was starting to have issues with it. Along with Kanye's public behavior, his inner circle had also seen a lot of shakeup in the process. Kanye's on and off again writing partner Reinvents had several public breakups and reconnections with Kanye, something that he's still doing to this day. He got with and broke up with Amber Rose in this time period. Friends and partners such as Kid Cudi and Jay-Z began to distance themselves at times on and off because of Kanye's increasingly erratic behavior. He changed managers and just generally shook up so much of his core support system in this time frame. Kanye was kind of out of control. And you have to wonder exactly how much of this was pain management, because much like many black men going through pain, Kanye seemed to lean into bad behavior in excess to avoid the pain. I don't know what drugs Kanye uses or has used or how much he drinks, but it was clear he was on a tear, which all led up to his first moment of truly undeniable press when he interrupted Taylor Swift winning her first ever VMA in 2009.
Yo, Taylor, I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish, but Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time. One of the best videos of all time.
So let's be clear. This was an asshole move on so many levels. This is early Taylor Swift before she became, Diet Beyonce and garnered an anti-fan movement of her own. She was only 19 at the time, and the thrust of her image at the time was this virtuous, innocent country girl who was out of place and overwhelmed in the spotlight. And this was her highest profile, really anything this early in her career. And here comes goofy ass, drunk ass Kanye doing some Kanye shit. And yeah, y'all, look at Taylor's face. For real. All hate aside, look at Taylor Swift's face and dare not to feel bad for her. Because this was her moment. This was her first big public award. And he ruined that for her. And that's foul. Even now, with everything that played out afterwards, I am devastated for this girl on the screen. All that said, it has always bothered me how the racial undertones of this never seem to get mentioned. All interactions between black men and white women, especially interactions of conflict, are innately political. There's a lot of negative energy triggered when the world sees black men misbehave around white women. Black folks included, because we know the possible consequences. So the reaction to this admittedly stupid and rude thing Kanye did was a bit over the top. It was memed in real life. Even the president commented on it, and it played out in the media probably far longer than it should have. And to again give Taylor credit, as far as I can tell, she really didn't make a huge deal out of it herself, and for the most part just moved on outside of making a few jokes at Kanye's expense. With all of this, Kanye's public persona was becoming a target. Even before this event, South Park had already poked fun of him with their infamous Fish Sticks episode.
You see, fish dicks is a play on words. I don't need anyone telling me play on words. I'm a motherfucking lyrical wordsmith, motherfucking genius.
Before all of this, actually, Kanye did the same thing he did to Taylor Swift to a whole different artist at an MTV Europe show.
And I had a little sippy, and I'm just chilling. Getting a little bit lippy. Yeah.
But they want to thank you guys. Thank you. Oh, get in here. You won already. That's all good. I mean, we got to share the wealth, but...
And at this point in time, everybody's taking shots at Kanye, and he was going from brushing it off to kind of being bruised. Kanye's heel heat started to become go away heat, and he definitely noticed. Now, he hadn't lost us yet. Kanye's original fan base was patient with him, but the thing that's clear now is that we weren't enough. He realized he was risking his career and access to a different audience with his behavior, so he felt now he had to show everyone, not just us, that he's exactly the Kanye you've always wanted. And with his next album, he would basically cancel being canceled. Kanye was scared he was going to lose everything. So for the first time ever in his career, Kanye went full kayfabe. And by kayfabe, I mean that for the first time, Kanye would become a character that wasn't truly him and perform that for the masses. And he was still great at it.
I'm living in that 21st century, doing something mean to it, do it better than anybody you ever seen, do it, scream from the haters, got a nice ring to it, I guess every superhero need his theme music, no one man to have all that power.
Just as powerful as a good heel turn, a well done face turn, aka the heel face turn, can be a real crowd pleaser. See, when a wrestler gets over as a heel, if they're good at it, the crowd over time begins to appreciate them for really playing this important role to the maximum. It's hard to explain, but in anime, when you have a villain that is so cool or so badass, or really in anything, you kind of start wanting to root for the villain and you hope for what's called the heel face turn. And when it happens, it's so great, especially if the character was face at some point in time, because it's like reconciling with a good friend after an estrangement. Suddenly you remember all the things that you loved about them. The smile is back. The high-flying moves are back. They're yours again, and you love it more because it feels better than it did before. That was Kanye's plan. Kanye went on an apology tour really right after dealing with Taylor Swift. Kanye, for the first time, was subdued and contrite. He played the bashful Negro, apologizing and even crying on TV about it, saying as much as he could that he was sorry. He did this a few times before setting himself back to work on his next project.
Incident, we'll call it that, at the VMAs. You obviously didn't know that that was going to turn into what it turned into, and then you, Mos Def came to you and said, "Get out of the country." Is that what happened?
Yeah, it's like it's a pretty bugged out story. I like literally left America. I stopped doing music altogether. I just took some time. I went to Japan just so I can get away from paparazzi altogether. And then in November, I moved to Rome and just like lived there. And then when I came back to the States, I moved to Hawaii and lived there.
Wow.
Lived there for like 6 months and just worked on music again.
I didn't know.
The stories from this time are wild. Kanye supposedly only slept 2 to 4 hours in spurts. People working on the album were flown there under secrecy and required to wear suits in the studio. They exercised together. They ate together daily. They did charity activity. It's probably as zoned in and disciplined as Kanye has ever been, and it showed. Dark Fantasy was his apology album. And just like with any toxic relationship, it was exactly the apology you needed because it was so affecting and you couldn't help but take him back because the album is fucking amazing. Kanye was face again. Kanye himself said that he wanted to make the best possible record that he could make that people wanted from him. And he did that. But put a pin there. 2010 to 2013 would continue Kanye's Goodwill tour. Seemingly over the loss of his mother and the breakup with Alexis, Kanye was back to an involved version of his old self. It wasn't exactly the same Kanye because not as much of the conscious stuff was there. The hungry overtures to the struggle were all but gone, and suddenly there was a lot more sleaze and excess and misogyny. He was a different character, but sonically, it was what we wanted to hear from him. And he put some excellent music out, not just with Dark Fantasy, but throughout this entire time period. Because along with Dark Fantasy, he did his collab with Jay-Z, he put out Cruel Summer, and he appeared on tons of tracks for everyone from Rick Ross to Katy Perry. Most significantly, in this time period, he kept his mouth shut, as far as I can tell at least. I'm sure there's some interviews with him talking crazy, but for the most part, there were no major blow-ups in this time period. Dark Fantasy was arguably his best album, and hit after hit came during this period, with Kanye proving to the world that he could easily be the face of music exactly as music wanted him to be. It was a face run for the ages, and for a second, for a fleeting moment, it felt like this would be it forever. Kanye fans rejoiced and reclaimed our icon, and everybody bought pink polos. But behind the scenes, things weren't so peachy. Movement and flux with Kanye's inner circle continued, and more significantly, Kanye's efforts to be taken seriously in the fashion world, something that he had been quietly doing in the background for years, were being constantly stifled, and the seeds of Kanye's next heel turn started to sprout.
Kanye West declares his love for Kim Kardashian.
I think it was more me pursuing him. Like, I know I am ready. I promise I'm ready now.
6 months after Kim separated from Chris Humphries, she reconnected with her now husband, Kanye West, and it didn't go down just the way she expected. Take a look.
Kanye West has dropped a new song online, and some of the lyrics reveal that he's in love with Kim Kardashian. The song is called Theraflu, and we hear Kanye rap, "I'll admit I fell in love with Kim around the same time she fell in love with him."
Co-hosts were probably getting dressed and in the shower and commuting here to the studio, so you guys might not have heard, but I'm sure you've heard that Kim and Kanye are now engaged.
In early parts of this script, I really glossed over this relationship. But as I did more and more research, I realized that this relationship is so much more deeper than we thought. It's because of the way a lot of folks, especially Black folks, see the Kardashians. I don't think we ever gave enough credit to the depth of this relationship to Kanye. In our love and admiration of Kanye and our disregard and low opinion of the Kardashian family, we underplayed this whole thing. We just said, poor Kanye got sucked into the Kardashian family and it's changed him like it's done so many other Black men. But I now realize that this narrative is much further from the truth than most older Kanye fans would like to admit. For one, Kanye and Kim had met years before they actually got together, and their attraction started early and persisted. And at the time, neither were the figures that they would grow to be. They met in 2009 on the set of a TV pilot he was shooting called Alligator Boots and stayed in contact from then. He popped up for a second on a Kardashian show back in 2011 before they were officially together, but there are rumors that they had dalliances at different times. Amber Rose, who Kanye met and dated before Kim, said that Kim was constantly a nuisance in their relationship. So the idea that Kim somehow trapped Kanye in his sickened state, it just doesn't fully add up. They got together during Kanye's face run in this time period, when he was highly focused and probably his healthiest he's been since then. Furthermore, an argument made by YouTuber Solar, and I think I'm saying your name right, if I'm not, I'm sorry. He points out that the Kardashians, as we know them today, greatly owe who they are to Kanye.
During their time together, Kanye viewed Kim's wardrobe decisions as his own personal responsibility and encouraged her to embrace minimalism. She used to favor wearing lots of big accessories, but learned that it's cooler to be a little bit simpler. Should be noted that before Kanye arrived, the Kardashians were noticeably absent from the Met Gala, which is essentially the Super Bowl of fashion. Each year, on the first Monday of May, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City hosts a charity ball to raise money for the Met's Costume Institute. Kanye West attended without Kim in 2012. Rumors spread that Anna Wintour, the editor-in-chief at Vogue and chairwoman of the gala event, had banned Kim's attendance for years, refusing to accept reality stars into the exclusive realm of the A-list. But in 2013, Kim finally got to attend as Kanye's +1.
When I saw this, it kind of blew my mind. As an old Kanye fan, it was more comforting to go with the narrative that Kanye and Kim was just this weird thing that made Kanye sick. But now I realize differently. Kanye, one, was legit into Kim and not just looking for a boost, but also he had a plan, a vision for not just Kim, but the extent of the entire family. I don't know how you do as much as Kanye did without really being invested in the partner he had. I mean, look at who Kim was then and now. He even gave her a new face. I didn't realize how much he elevated her, that she never went to a Met Gala before him, that she went from a low-end celebrity sideshow to a billionaire in that time frame. In my head, Kim Kardashian has always been super rich, but no, she built that with Kanye. So I really think this comes down to this just being some unhip hop shit that Kanye did. Other hip hop power couples of the time and years of yore looked pretty different. And I have to mention that for a lot of people, it was kind of also an issue of how Kim came onto the scene with the sex tape. There were a lot of mostly toxic layers to the criticism of this relationship from the hip hop community, and we kind of need to own that. Either way, this short face turn was coming to an end. Kanye had renewed himself in the public eye, proven again that he's capable of making amazing music, and proved to his critics that he doesn't think he's a genius. He is a genius. He just says it a lot because he wants you to know that he knows it. For a few years, Kanye played that game. He was forced to do exactly what people expected and wanted from him. But in the coming years, he would make everybody pay. And it started with his next project that would be aggressively antagonistic to everything Kanye was doing before then.
Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the man you came to see, Kanye West.
Not long after going public with Kim, Kanye would signal the coming heel turn by announcing his 6th studio album would be titled Yeezus. And in the lead up to Yeezus, Kanye was basically letting it be known that the face turn was over, fuck all y'all, and kayfabe is dead again.
From my theme song, my leather black jeans on, my body means on, party like getting my scream on, and then the king on. But watch who you bring home. You see a black man with a white woman at the top, so they gon' come make you King Kong.
Yeezus, his most controversial album up until Donda, and still his most aggressively transgressive album. It was very much a departure from the more straight hip-hop dark fantasy, but it was even more challenging than the experimental 808s. It was clear Kanye was no longer interested in making hip-hop music. He spoke to this in interviews before and after the album. On top of this, the title Yeezus, along with songs like I Am a God, Kanye was antagonizing this weird conservative movement that was happening in black entertainment at the time with the whole such and such is in the Illuminati craze. It was something that was happening in the early 2010s. It was basically some black QAnon shit. And essentially, if you were black and you were famous, you were in the Illuminati. Just YouTube that shit right now. I bet you most of those videos are still on here, and it was insane. And so because it was such a popular conspiracy theory, a lot of black artists would actually lean into it because it would help drive engagement. It would make them buzz more. And with Yeezus, Kanye was going full steam ahead in that shit. And it was definitely Kanye retaliating against us for forcing him to do kayfabe. What we realize now is that the whole point of the previous face turn was to get the heat off him and re-ingratiate himself to the public. And the ultimate goal of that was to allow Kanye to fully access the fashion world. And he had shown that his mixture of design vision and celebrity to be a moneymaker with his Nike Air Yeezy shoe line. And this is greatly because of his presence in pop culture, high urban wear as a thing. And Yeezy was the father of that thing. He was a big part of that wave, but Kanye wanted to be Poseidon. He didn't want to just be the wave, he wanted to control the waters. And when he was essentially told that he could be a brand ambassador, but never an owner or creator, he was angry. And after giving the world the gift that was dark fantasy and keeping his mouth shut and playing the game and still not getting access, he was furious. We got a taste of that fury in songs like New Slaves and Blood on the Leaves and Black Skinhead, but also in his infamous series of interviews in that time period.
And stand up and let me create more. Or do you want to marginalize me till I'm out of my moment?
Or why don't you empower yourself and don't need them and do it yourself?
How, Sway?
Take a few steps back to go.
You ain't got the answers, man. You ain't got the answers. You ain't got the answers. You ain't got the answers, Sway.
If there was ever a point in hip hop's relationship with Kanye where we had the big fight and nothing was the same after that, it was 2013 with a series of interviews. A few months after Yeezus dropped, Kanye did a series of interviews with major media outlets, which was odd in and of itself because it was well after the album had dropped. And I don't know what he was promoting or if he was just venting his frustrations as a plea for support. But Kanye in these interviews aired his frustrations with the limitations being put on him by the greater art and fashion industry to keep him in the box of being a musician and a rapper.
I have reached the glass ceiling. As a creative person, as a celebrity. When I say that, it means I want to do product. I am a product person, not just clothing, but water bottle design, architecture, everything, that you could, think about. And I've been at it for 10 years. And I look around, I say, wait a second, there's no one around here in this space that looks like me. And if they are, they're quiet as fuck.
What release date for
What's the date of the
Yeezys?
Yeezys? That's what people want to know. You know what Nike told me? You know what Nike told me when I asked them? What's that? We're not sure. That's what they told me. I thought you controlled it. I go against. That's my whole point. All right, I get it. That's my whole point. That's what I'm trying to. They be sunning me. They be acting like I ain't me.
To us, Kanye sounded crazy. He was dropping all of these names of figures and executives and ancient architects and aristocratic families, etc., that most people had never heard of. He was complaining that his super expensive $1,000 shoes did not grant him access to the audiences and support that he deserved. He was frustrated with all the barriers that the fashion industry had placed on his artistry, and his anger was unhinged and rambling and egomaniacal. But it was right. With hindsight and going back and listening to these interviews and thinking about what has happened from this point on, I get it. Kanye was trying to break the mold on what black artists could do. For the longest, great black artists will be formed and molded in our communities. And once they got big enough, they would venture off into the world, cross over, if you will, to be appreciated by the greater dominant society, aka white people. After a while, they would usually return back to us, often with a few scars, or maybe they would be sucked into that reality and sometimes slowly destroyed. But Kanye didn't just want to do a tour in the dominant society. He recognized early that black art was the lifeblood of the art world as a whole, and that hip hop was the dominant force of pop culture.
I see Hedy Slimane, and it's all like, okay, this is my take on the world. Yeah, he got some nice $5,000 jeans in there.
It's some nice ones here and there, some good shit here and there. But we culture. Rap the new rock and roll. We culture. Rap is the new rock and roll. We the rock stars.
It's been like that now for a minute.
It's been like that for a minute, Hedy Slimane. It's been like that for a minute. We the real rock stars, and I'm the biggest of all of them.
He felt like he, as the biggest force in the culture, shouldn't be satisfied with just getting a small piece. He wanted the whole plate. When you think about rap stars before, during, and after Kanye, most of them are just happy to get their piece. And if you think about it, that's not fair. And this is something that's been relevant and happening with Black art, especially Black musicians, since music became a commercial enterprise 100 years ago. There's always been Black artists who have at least gotten their piece, maybe gotten their masters, but considering how the Black art form of music was such a huge force, it doesn't make sense that all these Black creators throughout history have never had a bigger seat at the table. So that's essentially what Kanye wanted, but he didn't have true access. He didn't have the factories, he didn't have the seamstresses or whatever you need to make $1,000 shoes. And what I realize now is that Kanye, in his head at least, was coming back to the people for support, to have his back as he went in to do this groundbreaking thing on our behalf, to change the world so that rappers didn't just make t-shirts and license their faces to potato chips or something, but so we could be executives and have partnerships and collaborative in the art that feeds off of our creativity. But on the flip side, that's not what the culture was asking for.
Feeling of when I was in 4th grade drawing Jordans that I applied to the Yeezys, that you can't deny that people lined up for that you can't deny if I had a pair of red Yeezys for y'all now, y'all wouldn't want them.
You do realize that's not why we love you. We love you because of the music, bro. You gave us that feeling with albums like College Dropout, Graduation, Late Registration. We don't care about your designing sneakers and clothes and all that. That means nothing to us.
Yeah, no, Yeezys do mean something to the
culture. Not more than the music. Not more than the music.
The culture didn't know all these fucking European names and rightfully didn't care about Kanye's ability to sell $2,000 shoes that we couldn't even fucking afford. We were the actual college dropouts, and if we're lucky, graduates. By now, we're having children, trying to pay off student loans, working shitty jobs in late stage capitalism. And after giving us this weird ass album and low-key ignoring us for the years in between, Kanye has the nerve to come back to us to look for support so he can go do this big thing that we don't care about or even understand. Charlamagne and Sway both told Kanye, look, we don't care about this stuff. Why don't you return to the culture that birthed you? Make dope music and keep it pushing. Do whatever industry fashion thing you can do and be good at that. But that's not what Kanye wanted. Kanye felt he would change the world, and I think we as his OG fans felt rejected. Hip hop, the culture, wasn't big enough for Kanye. Being just for us was too limiting for Kanye's vision, and it felt like that rift has never really mended to this day.
Stand what I'm dealing with.
So
y'all get some clarity.
People don't care about your rich problems. Those are rich problems. The fact that the fashion designers won't accept you, Nike won't accept you, we don't care. We just want Ye to make great music. That's what Ye does for the people. He gives us great music that helps us get through our lives.
You know what? And average person probably think I can't afford what he's gonna make with them anyway.
100%. I want to make affordable, and I will make affordable.
You sold $150 t-shirts, Ye.
I didn't price the t-shirt. That's what I'm trying to say. I was just trying to design. I did not price the t-shirt. I did not price the Yeezys. I did not price the Louis Vuitton. But on my next ventures, I will be pricing them. And y'all can say, this is what we want. We want you to make, music to you, Ron Ozzy age. You can't marginalize me. You can't tell me what creativity I'm supposed to do on this earth. I can tell you right now, I don't want to do no more songs, and that's my prerogative. You know what I'm saying? That's my idea. That's what I want to do. You can't control me. So, all corporations, radio stations, y'all can't control me. Y'all don't understand that. I'm turned all the way. I believe in me. Just believe in you. Let me do me. You like it? Cool. You don't? Fast forward.
So on one end, I now understand the reasons why Kanye seemed so angry. And although he came off unhinged and, in his mode, Kanye was right. He was being barred from this industry essentially because they didn't want a black man to have access to it like that. But at the same time, I don't fucking care. And most people, the people that Kanye came from, the people that he supposedly was representing, they didn't care about $1,000 shoes or the fashion that Kanye's been making for the last couple of years. And so there's this conflict here that I still don't really get to this day, where in a perfect world, right, Black people wouldn't be barred from self-determination and being able to go and try to do and access the things that they want in life without having their Blackness be counted against them. I get that. And that's what Kanye was doing. And he earned that, right? He had already done so much for the culture, for the industry, and for Black people. But you can't call yourself a voice of the people and not do anything that the people actually want you to do. So it becomes this dichotomy. And that is the paradoxical nature that I still found myself in, trying to be a fan of Kanye then and now. I find myself with much less conviction defending Kanye at this point, and I wasn't alone, but it went from Kanye as this iconic figure to Kanye just being a really dope artist that we should support. Kanye was still making music, but I didn't have to invest in his lifestyle or his behavior to appreciate what he is and his music seemed to stand for. And I felt the need to kind of defend him because at this time, it felt like the media really turned on him and just kept putting cameras in his face to allow him to make a fool of himself. Kanye would continue with the erratic behavior going into the life of Pablo, all while still constantly shaking up his inner circle. Rhymefest left again in the middle of recording. Jay-Z and him didn't seem like they were speaking, and he was surrounded by yes men, and the album's release was a mess, much like how Donda has been recently, where the album was mixed weirdly and didn't have finished features and was updated, basically patched a month later. And it has some good points, but it's greatly meandering. And the only real sticking point for me is that this is where Kanye finally started getting back into gospel again. The album was well received overall, but it was not as loved by either the pure hip hop fans or Kanye's newest fan base or the fans that he had picked up along the way. It was maybe the first time Kanye had just released a new album and not this huge ground shaking moment in hip hop. And unfortunately for Kanye, this time coincided with another rapper's rise who had been nipping at his heels, but undeniably was surpassing him as the most significant rapper in the game at this time. Kanye's Life of Pablo tour was when we started understanding that it wasn't just Kanye acting crazy, that Kanye was legit sick. And maybe in our selfishness, wanting him to be the old Kanye, we missed that. Kanye's concert tours are the stuff of legend as he puts all of his artistic vision into his shows. But the Life of Pablo tour was riddled with setbacks as Kanye spiraled.
I've been sent here to give y'all the truth. Jay-Z called me, bro. You still ain't called me. Jay-Z called me. Hey, bro, Jay-Z, I know you got killers. Please don't send them out my head. Just call me. Talk to me like a man.
He went on a rant over Jay-Z, his longtime friend, and how he needed to borrow money from Jay-Z and Jay-Z wouldn't call him. And then he ranted on Drake and said that Drake was controlling the radio. And then a month later, he stopped and he got hospitalized because he was having a nervous breakdown. But before ending it, he also gave us a glimpse into the next stage of his heel turn that all of us just assumed he was just trolling the crowd.
But if I would have voted, I would have voted on Trump.
But around this time, it came out that Kanye was bipolar and that his team and family were struggling to help him manage it. This was the end of Kanye as a standard bearer for hip hop. His sound that was once revolutionary had now been mimicked so much by countless other acts that it didn't seem so revolutionary. His interest in high fashion and lifestyle had already kind of been taken up by the dominant society and so many other rappers. Kanye, for all his genius and forward thinking, had allowed the culture to catch up to him. Or maybe he was just sick and tired and needed to do his own thing or find a way to set himself apart from this wave of people following in his footsteps. Sometimes a heel is just too good and too over to really play their role properly in wrestling. The heel is supposed to be the bad guy, right? A person you want to see lose. That's important to wrestling storytelling because if you don't want the face to win and the heel to lose, it becomes harder to create drama within a match. The fact that the villains often win makes it that much more fulfilling when they are finally defeated. But if a villain doesn't draw the appropriate type of heat, if the crowd doesn't want them to lose, then the crowd can't maximize their experience with a match or a story. So the best heels have to find ways to make the crowd hate them no matter how much the crowd kind of wants to love them. Sometimes it's just by insulting the crowd. Sometimes it's through a taunt or beating up a person that they see as weak and innocent or cheating to win. But the best heels find that nuanced and specific way to do something really ugly and really horrifying to the audience that makes them really hate them.
Away. You see Sasha Banks? What is wrong with her? Sasha Banks running around with Izzy's, with that headband on. Look, did you see Izzy? Yeah, this is this is who you want as your champion. This is who you want representing the.
For maybe a year after the Life of Pablo tour, mostly quietly focusing on his fashion, which was finally starting to become significant, Kanye announced a summer of music where he would produce several EPs by artists that he was connected to. On the ramp up to this, Kanye also wanted to make sure that we would still see him as apart from the culture he helped build, and showed us that he was really ready to be a heel of legendary proportion. Welcome to the Kanye tour of awfulness.
You wanna see the sunken place? Okay, I'ma listen to y'all now. I'ma put my Superman cape on. You can't tell me what to do. I got off of opioids, I'm in the hospital, right? I'm taking hey, everyone listen to this, please. 2 days before I was in the hospital, I was on opioids. I was addicted to opioids. I had plastic surgery because I was trying to look good for y'all.
Scoop-dee-dee-whoop. Whoop-dee-scoop-dee-poop.
Welfare is the reason why a lot of black people end up being Democrat. They say, you know, first of all, it's a limit to amount of jobs. So the fathers lose the jobs and they say, we'll give you more money for having more kids in your home.
We are drugged out. We are following other people's opinions. We are controlled by the media. I am in hip hop, but I'm not just in hip hop. I'm a black person in the black community, but I'm not just that. I feel like one thing is people try to minimize me to artists, hip hop, black community.
Poop-dee, scoop-dee, scoop-dee, whoop. Whoopie-dee, scoop, whoop, poop.
What I'm saying is, and I hate to be black and white.
You need a black woman.
There's no black women in this life. Let's just keep that 100.
Like a guy that could play catch with his son. It was something about when I put this hat on, it made me feel like Superman. You made a Superman, that's my favorite superhero. And you made a Superman cape for me also as a guy that looks up to you.
You're such a freaky girl, I love it. Poop diddy whoop scoop. Poop, poop.
I won't spend a lot of time trying to argue the validity of the shit Kanye was talking about at this point. There's no real logic or rhyme or reason to the nonsense that he's said then and really has been saying up until now. He keeps saying he wants to inspire the world and bring it together and also somewhere deal with the prison industrial complex, but it's mostly just the ramblings of a man that has lost touch with reality and lost touch with the people he used to represent. And I don't know and won't try to insinuate how much of this is his mental illness. I don't know. I think I'm not okay with that. But I also can't say that this is not reflective of some beliefs that are truly within Kanye's ethos. Kanye is of a culture that I am familiar with that is a unique form of black conservatism, where you have a lot of pro-black rhetoric and ethos, and also a lot of conservative ideology, especially as Kanye has gotten back with the church. A commenter on the last video pointed out a great observation that Kanye from the beginning has always been a contrarian. And as pop culture has moved further left, it's almost as if he felt like he needed to move more right in order to maintain being a contrarian. And that's possible, but I just don't fucking know. I don't fucking know. There's really nothing in it that makes sense other than the possibility of it being a ploy for him to get the legendary Chicago gangster Larry Hoover released from jail, something that he's still fighting for post-Trump, but I don't get it. And it makes less sense when you see that Kanye in this whole time was spending money to support Democratic candidates all up until 2016, including giving money to Hillary Clinton to beat Trump. It doesn't make any fucking sense, but even still, it was a slap in the face and downright embarrassing to his fan base. And considering the stakes, gross. I don't have real experience with bipolar disorder. I've helped people that suffer from it before, but I have no intimate knowledge on like how it works. However, from the research I did and from talking to people, 2018, that time period, Kanye's whole personality, really for the last couple of years, has been very emblematic of bipolar disorder. Manic and detached highs combined with contrite and lucid lows. It's hard to imagine that the same guy breaking down at TMZ was the lucid and contrite person sitting down with Charlemagne the God. And that speaks to an issue of how this mental illness works, at least as far as I can tell. The whiplash of this last 4 or 5 years has been difficult for anyone that cares about the man and felt connected to what his legacy and persona and music have been up until this point, regardless of why it was happening. At the same time, it also gained Kanye a new fan base that, until I did the last video, I really didn't think about, which is neuroatypical people who appreciate how far Kanye has gone. And although Kanye has upset people in his behavior, the fact that he's able to keep pushing, I get how that's inspiring. So there's that. Kanye himself has said he wants to eradicate the concept of stigma and mental illness, which makes all this even harder because it's like, where do we land? Kanye addressed this cycle of mania and depression in his 2018 EP, Ye. And Ye is probably Kanye's worst album, which is still musically better than a lot of stuff, but there's a few highlights. But most interestingly is Kanye's attempts to speak to his mental illness and attempts to publicly make amends with his wife and his peers. And the other interesting thing is that it previewed Kanye's full dive into Christianity and gospel. Kanye had always had the desire to bridge secular and Christian music way back in The College Dropout with Jesus Walks, and Kanye's recent work with Chance the Rapper and his own gospel album signaled that he was wanting to re-engage with the concept. In 2019, Kanye mostly went quiet and only popped up with clips from his totally not occult Sunday services, events that he did at his house. And although the imagery here was a bit concerning considering how Kanye had been acting the last few years, it showed a Kanye that looked much happier and healthier. Kanye was surrounded by his people and his children and was back indulging in music that was deeply embedded in the Black musical tradition, mixing sounds of gospel with hip hop and Chicago house music and just all this other good stuff. And there's reason to believe that this was him trying to commune with his mother, with the spirit that his mother tried to instill in him before all this other stuff happened. It was also around this time that Kanye finally made it big with fashion, and his Yeezy brand shoes and clothing with Adidas began gaining serious success. Because of this, he signed a deal worth maybe somewhere between $2 and $6 billion. I'm not sure, but it made him a billionaire. Everything Kanye said he wanted to do in those wild interviews in 2013, he did. In this time of his heel turn, Kanye became a billionaire, married the girl of his dreams, had a family, changed the fashion industry, and continued being a hip hop legend. And now he had the financial backing to do more. All the stuff that he said he was going to do, this ideal that he would change the world, it was right there. There was no reason to root against him, to turn away from these tactics. And like the clowns we are, the fans said, surely this would mark the end of this tumultuous heel run. After Ye, where he apologized, and after visuals of him coming to the Lord and the announcement that he became a billionaire and all this good stuff, it felt like Kanye was going to settle down, that he was ready to move on and move away from this period. Despite being on one of his lesser albums, the song Ultra Light Beam is probably still today my favorite song by Kanye. Though I've never been much of a fan for gospel, for a moment in this song, you don't necessarily hear old Kanye, but you hear whole Kanye. At this time, we didn't know Kanye was bipolar, right? But we could see something was wrong. But when he started getting into gospel, when he dropped the gospel album in this same time period, when you saw him behind the piano and the slightly cult-like but incredibly joyful performances he did live and on tour, in those moments, those of us who loved Kanye wanted to believe that he was healing himself, that the next apology would be the last one. But that just wasn't the case. In the following year, during the pandemic, Kanye would get back into his habit of freakouts and apologies, culminating in maybe the ugliest scene where during one of his presidential rallies, yes, Kanye, if you don't know, ran for president, even though technically I don't think he ever even filed paperwork. So I don't know what the fuck this was again. But in this event, he rambled on stage looking out of it. He disrespected slavery and the legacy of Harriet Tubman for some reason, and revealed that he tried to convince Kim Kardashian to have an abortion for their first child. An ugly and abhorrent thing to do to your spouse for clout. Because again, what was even this event?
But even if my wife were to divorce me after this speech, she brought North into the world even when I didn't want to. She stood up and she protected that child.
This seemed to put a fracture in their marriage that led to its eventual end. That was late 2020, which feels like so long ago. Kim would file for divorce earlier this year in 2021. And from that point on, Kanye was quiet as far as I can tell until rumblings of a new album started in the summer. The new album would be named Donda after Kanye's late mother, but in the lead up to Donda, Kanye still seemed to be in a spiral, holding numerous album listening parties while also delaying the album numerous times in the process. There were stories that he was literally working on the album before these parties, having rappers come to lay verses in the rooms behind the audience. Gone were the days of dark fantasy where Kanye worked around the clock to create the best piece of art he could. Instead, Kanye pushed the album back over and over and just created spectacle after spectacle, none of it looking really good. After 2 months of drama and false dates, the album would finally drop. And Kanye, for what is worse, hasn't said anything this entire time, with his only words being that when the album finally did drop, it dropped without his permission and in an unfinished state. So unfinished, in fact, that several rappers and artists on his numerous features didn't get their money. Like, there's something called splits when you do a song with somebody else, and that's like a legal thing, and none of that shit happened, it seems, so people weren't even getting paid for their work. As for the album, Donda is a scattered mess like the last couple of albums, really. It's has some incredible highs with stuff like 24, another gospel song where for a moment you get a glimpse of Kanye maybe having clarity, or Hurricane, a dark and broody track featuring Weeknd and Lil Baby, both giving great performances, and Kanye coming in and giving a gut-wrenching verse eulogizing his own fall from grace, before ending with one of the dumbest bars I've heard since his dumb bar about Chick-fil-A. Everybody's so judgmental. Everybody's so judgmental. Everybody hurts, but I don't judge rentals.
Whack.
And here we are today. This, for now, is the end of this chapter in an unfinished story. And there's a lot to unpack because we still haven't heard Kanye talk in this time frame post Kim. There's also rumors of him and Kim reconciling. There's tons of behind the scenes rumors otherwise. There's changes to the album just as recently as this week as of recording. There's no telling where we're gonna go from here, but if I'm honest, it's hard to imagine that it will be better than it's been. And so as fans and critics, we're left with our thoughts and maybe even an inflection point, a decision tree on how to regard Kanye from here on. So what do we do? First, let's engage with, I think, the most important issue, which is mental illness and our response to it, especially when it comes to Black men. Mental illness in the Black community is still highly stigmatized. Things have improved in recent years and conversations about mental illness are happening more and more, and a lot of celebrities and notable Black figures are speaking to their struggles, but there's still a long way to go. Like, we talk about go to therapy. I've been guilty of this, but the reality is therapy isn't accessible to everybody, especially the Black men who maybe need it the most. And we still don't regard these Black men who are sick as people who are sick. we look at them as threats. I saw a tweet from one of my subscribers that talked about how black men and boys exist in a space that while living, they cannot be victims. We are only seen as aggressors and only fully humanized in death. And it hit hard because I know I'm not the only black man who has felt this way and experienced that type of regard. Furthermore, I've worked with troubled youth for most of my adult life. I see firsthand the disconnect and how we and the system regard black men and boys who are troubled, unwell, traumatized, or sick. Black men who suffer from pretty much anything are very often cast aside. Part of this is because we are so often a detriment to those around us. But the sheer volume of black men that you can see on the street of any downtown metro area where there's a homeless shelter suffering from mental illness and substance abuse is profound. And I can't help but wonder if we're being fair to Kanye as a man who is in a very unique position of being immensely talented, unfathomably rich, and then mentally unwell. Paradoxically, Kanye's fame and money and notoriety amplifies his illness. It gives him a literal platform and microphone to speak through when he is in a manic state. He seems eternally at war with himself, and many of his battles are televised and broadcasted. And you can tell in the music that when he comes back down to earth, back to his senses, that he's not happy with what he's done.
I want to take this moment right now to say that I'm sorry for hurting. I'm sorry for the 1-2 effect of the MAGA hat into the slave comment. And I'm sorry for people who felt let down by that moment. And also, I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to talk to you about what the way I was thinking and what I was going through and what led me, to that. The thing is, it's one of those ones, like, have you ever done something where you did something for someone that's positive, but it was something about the way you did it that kind of like blew the whole thing up? So Jay did something that was positive, but the fact that I didn't receive the information in the right way, because I always feel like, man, I'm out here in Hollywood. I'm out here like my mom's passed. I don't know who I can trust. I don't trust nobody.
So on that end, I'm empathetic. It feels like after his mother's passing, something that he blames himself for, Kanye decided that it was his destiny to change the world, and he did that. The world of art, fashion, the world of business, and hip hop is different today because of Kanye West. But it feels like he lost so much to accomplish this along the way, and that's tragic. At the same time, Kanye is and has been a heel for a while, and it's hard to not feel in retrospect that this heelish, out of touch character was who he was all along. It's galling to know that billionaire Kanye West was signing these deals with Adidas and selling $300 t-shirts, but not able to fund his community service center named after his mom for a time. Kanye is a hyper-capitalist that has fully immersed himself in the bourgeoisie world. And although there are rumors that he plans on using his wealth to give back and save the environment and all that stuff, actions speak louder than words. Further, up until this point, the offenses of Kanye have mostly been him saying egregiously dumb and offensive things to the point of farce, like saying slavery is a choice is offensive, right? But it's so fucking stupid that I honestly don't care. That said, the reemergence of his spiritual side has come with some of the worst parts of conservatism, such as complaining about how revealing Kim Kardashian dresses after years of dressing her like that. Let alone the sexually provocative lyrics and imagery that he's employed throughout his whole career. It's wild that he would ever come out of his mouth to say these things. Then you add on top of that his anti-abortion and anti-vax rants in the last couple of years. It's really indicative of a lot of Black conservatism. There's a video coming on that at some point in time. But as I said earlier, shit is weird. Then you have the dumb shit where he brought out DaBaby and Marilyn Manson, of all people, at I think the last listening party, which like both of these men were coming out of or really still in significant controversies at the time. You could say, oh, this is about redemption and Kanye trying to be symbolic and yada, yada, yada. But how many redemptions do we need, really? How much grace can we give this dude? So, what's the appropriate response here? I wish I could end this video like I ended Tyson, recognizing and celebrating how one man with a really fucked up background got his life together, but that's not gonna be the case here. Kanye has only gotten worse over time, and unlike Mike, he hasn't hit bottom and there's nobody to rein him in. Kanye is literally possibly the richest Black American in the world. He's still insanely good at what he does. Who has the power to tell him what to do? What criticism can be levied at him that won't be brushed off? What platform can he be deplatformed from? Would any of those things help him or just make us feel like we did something, but kind of make the situation worse? Which I think is a real big issue with cancel culture as a whole. And I don't have any good answers for these questions regarding Kanye, which I think makes it most appropriate that I decline to tell any of you how you should respond. In fact, I think we need to kind of replace the concept of canceling a particular figure with the concept of divesting, which is nothing new. And I actually got that language from Nappy-Headed Yehovah in her discussion of Kanye a few weeks back. Essentially, if you are done with insert artists here antics and problematic behavior and thoughts and everything else that they do, stop dealing with that person in any way that bothers you. But if you're not at that point, maybe don't. I think our desire to draw clean and easily discernible lines on the behavior of artists and the consumption of their art is dubious, because we are setting ourselves up for failure and strife at trying to find simple, automatic responses to incredibly complex situations. We're at the point now where no matter what community you have an affinity for, a musician, writer, painter, comic artist, etc. that you loved or was instrumental to your youth or your sense of identity or your upbringing, you are now struggling with your support for that artist that is flawed or possibly even monstrous. Everybody's dealing with this shit now. But the thing I want to enter into discourse, regardless of that I haven't really seen enough, is that at this point, I think it's better to regard me not as a Kanye fan, but a victim of Kanye fandom. And the same goes for Harry Potter, Dave Chappelle, and insert whatever problematic fandom you can think of here. There are a lot of folks in this boat, and of course there's levels because some people's behavior, but none of us chose to be affected by the art of these flawed and problematic people. And now we are collectively suffering for that very human and very honest connection that we made with art because the art's creator is awful. As for Kanye specifically, I'm in the process of letting go. I'm letting go of my hope that he ever fully returns to the form and energy that he had when he first came out. But I hold on to those feelings and those experiences because they are important to me. I still hold out hope that somehow he's gonna become well. And at the same time, I don't talk about him publicly. I don't really get into the beef and the criticism and any arguments about it because I'm trying to talk the talk. And that's just me. And if you find that uncomfortable, please don't find any reason to allow me to make you uncomfortable. And if you feel the same, please don't fight people in the comments. Kanye's legacy on hip hop and Black masculinity and culture is, in my opinion, bigger than any figure in hip hop history. His movements changed pretty much everything. His influence changed the way the culture was shaped and affected a generation of Black men who were really up until that point feeling very voiceless. Maybe going forward, he'll do the same for mentally ill or the environment, or maybe the youth of Chicago. Maybe we're not the last population that he's going to touch. Maybe he'll say something awful next week. It's hard to ascertain, but that's why I hold on to the good part that I know, that I was there for. And that's why I wanted to share that with you all in these last two videos. There's a fantasy world where this has all been one elaborate psyop by Kanye, that he's going to get Larry Hoover out of jail and start some type of green energy movement and apologize for all of his ridiculous stuff and never have a blow up again and come up with good ass music, which he's actually been teasing, that all of this was just this big Andy Kaufman-like ruse that he's been setting us up this whole time, this long, elaborate story to try to get to this point where Donda and his pain from losing his mom is finally where things wrap up. I want to believe that. But then I remember Kanye broke kayfabe.
halls of the school, and it's cool to be known by many for my rapping ability. But what about the brothers who ain't got it like me, though?
I walk through the halls of the school, and it's cool to be known by many for my rapping ability. But what about the brothers who ain't got it like me, making money off the trade? You can say I had it made. Drugs on the rise, and it's not a big surprise. You see no soul in the young brother's eyes. Trying to hard by the streets, but the streets are kind of hard. But here's another factor that we can't disregard. Black on black is a stab in my back. It really hurts my soul when I hear about that.
Wait a minute, I always had the words too. I love that rap. Well, you didn't think it was good. Now it's mad whack, huh?
Nah, it's good. That show you if you have a rap that actually means something, it's good.
You gonna come
it
back
stand the
with
test of time if you say something.
And that's all I got today, y'all. I think my voice is hoarse. I don't know what the lighting looks like now because it's dark outside because I've had to take several breaks in doing this. But like, share, and subscribe. Do all the things you're supposed to do at this point. Please, 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 please check out my Patreon. There's probably going to be a slightly better, less rigidly edited version of this video there with all the great music cues. Yeah, that's it, y'all. That's all I got on this one. Peace.